age has never bothered me because whatever happened in the past is in the past and I'm going forward. Yippee! I understood the difference between heaven and hell when I was a child, and I didn't think my father deserved hell. So rather than kick my father out, I kicked the church out. And I have nothing to do with a organized religion. It's the communicator's responsibility to be understood, to be clear. It's just like when you're writing a paper or an essay, whatever you're doing, it's your responsibility to make sure your points are clear for the reader or the person listening would understand it. So it puts the onus on the person doing the talking, not the person doing the listening. If you can be generous in allowing a person to exist and thrive and be that person, then you're going to get a lot in return. There's just too much energy out in the universe not to be affected by it. And I think that it speaks to people very differently, and how you respond is how you navigate life. Regardless of what the sex of the person is, the age of the person, the ethnic background, none of that matters. It's their value system that matters. And if you are aligned, then you're forever together. The more you prove to yourself that you're worthy and capable, the more independent you become. So independence is critical, particularly for women. You must be independent.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of P.S. Younger Self. I'm your host, Chris, and we have a very special episode today because first, we're in the Lisbon studio, and second, we have a special guest who is someone that has become a very dear friend of mine, and what I believe is to be a unique friendship, because despite our 20-plus age gap, I think it is something that hasn't really, limited our friendship at all, or even comes to mind. But actually, I think it's helped to enrich our friendship. So, and she has a wealth of wisdom. I think she's hilarious, fabulous in so many ways. And I know that her wisdom on so many things through her lived experience and a life beautifully lived will be also valuable and interesting to my listeners as well. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to be here.
But I have to mention that this is a two-way street. It's because of your willingness to be open to the possibility of someone influencing or making you think about things a little differently. It's your openness to the concept of age is no barrier and age is pretty much a construct. I mean, there are so many ways that one ages in the world. It's not necessarily, for example, when you have a birthday and you turn the next year, let's say you were 35 and then you turn 36. The difference between 36 on your birthday and 35 the day before is meaningless.
You're right.
And so that's what I'm thinking is the age process is meaningless in how you experience your world. And I can give you another example.
Yeah, please.
May I?
Of course.
So many years ago, I went to my high school 10-year reunion.
Okay.
Now, I'm seeing most of my classmates for pretty much the first time in 10 years. But since we all have name tags on and we all know who we are, I had a good time seeing people and catching up with people. But what I walked away with was how different everyone's life seemed to have evolved in the same 10-year period. For example, I had friends that not only were married, but were married and divorced and on their second marriage. I had friends that had started a family and are in their second career. It was amazing, the dichotomy in how that 10 years impacted my high school classmates. Also very differently.
Exactly. And I love that because when you first mentioned how age is a construct, You're absolutely right. It is just a construct in our mind, and it's the meaning that we put on it, just like everything else in life, right? Like because we're all meaning making machines. That's how we are wired. And I love how you gave that example. And when we became friends, and I love to actually share the story of how we even became friends because it was so unexpected. It was organic. And I think it's the beauty of how our friendship just blossomed in the most unexpected way. And to your point, thank you for your kind words about, I think, just being open
and receptive.
Receptive. You're right. That's such a great word. And thank you and I purposely, intentionally, not to just fixate on, our age gap or anything like that, but to kind of make people a little bit more open-minded in the fact that, to your point, age is just a construct, maybe not even just in friendships, but maybe even dating relationships or in any, relationship dynamic. Because I know at least in my circle of friends, there is this saying that we want to be around like-minded people. And it's just true. It's boring. And I understand where they're coming from in terms of I want to be around, equally ambitious people. So we motivate each other and drive each other and keep ourselves accountable. I think there's something to that. But I've noticed those types of kind of mindset or the group does attract similar age group. They're all doing the same thing, which again works in some capacity. Let's say if they're all trying to build a startup or all trying to build their e-commerce business or what have you, but it's all kind of similar versus the fact that if you're more open-minded and think about the idea that age is just a construct. You can develop friendships from people of all walks of life, all age groups, all kind of professional fields or interests. Like, I think it opens up your world to so much more.
It does. And if you have the propensity to want to continue to learn and want to expand your universe, then age is totally irrelevant because everyone comes to the position that they're in from a whole host of varieties. They don't always go down the same path in the same way. And my very first boss said of me that I have a natural curiosity.
I love that.
So that's the organic part. And that probably has helped me be exposed to a variety of things and people of all ages and background. And I can remember when I was young and just starting to become my own independent self. My quest was to I wanted to meet and know an architect. I wanted to meet and know an artist. That there were professions that I aspired to learn about. Not so much that I would become one of them. It's just it was a way of me understanding and experiencing all different disciplines. So I met a dentist, I met an architect, I of course knew lawyers and a doctor. Anyway, it just helped me understand what was involved in their experience and their background. And
what an interesting kind of outlook or approach. Instead of saying like, I want to meet like-minded people, but you had a very intentional approach of wanting to meet people from very different fields of work.
And then another thing that a lot of people were so excited about turning 16. A lot of my girlfriends, 16 was
sweet
a big,
16 is kind of a milestone
and I look at them and say, what's the big deal of turning 16? I want to turn 18 and be emancipated. What? So anyway, again, I'm pointing to you that you are receptive. Your aura spoke to my aura.
Oh.
Yes. And we have to give credit where credit deserves. If it wasn't for Jihei, I may never have known you.
Yeah. So on that note, we do have to share the story of how we became friends organically.
Go ahead.
So Jihei, so for those of you who are not familiar, is the love of my life. She's my baby Jihei, my fur baby. And when she was an itty bitty little puppy that still fit into my like kangaroo pouch that I still carry this day, and I still carry her in there. She's over 3 kilos, and that's about 8 pounds. Anyway, so I was able to sneak her into the grocery store. She was small enough to kind of like hide in there. And lo and behold, I was in the grocery store in the neighborhood, and this lady, you, just very excitedly came up to me, kind of close to pet my adorable, if you met my baby Jihei, you can't resist.
Right, exactly.
I'm a little biased.
Right.
But yeah, so it was because of my baby Jihei and my kangaroo pouch that was the attraction per se. And at the time you lived in the neighborhood, and you just mentioned, I remember, we have to get to this too, you and your husband David had just moved here from the States, and the rest is history.
Yes. I mean, Jihei was the initial attraction. But then the fact that you opened your mouth and I understood I understood the language, which was also something that I was, navigating, being very apologetic for not knowing the Portuguese language. But hearing English in my vicinity was another pull. Anyway, it was the beginning, but certainly has nothing to do with where we're headed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been over a year now. I can't believe it. And you're right. Thank you again for touching on the receptiveness, because even though that was such a beautiful, organic way of meeting, that's a lot of encounters happen. But I believe that both of us invested and I think showed each other deep interest in cultivating the friendship and being there for each other, so which means a lot, and why I consider you a very special dear friend now.
Absolutely.
I want to touch on and start off the conversation with challenging assumptions. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but I had alluded to the fact or mentioned that there's about a 25-year age gap between us.
Who's counting?
So who's counting? But no, for the purposes of kind of the kind of angle of the message here. So what would you say, because you're in your 70s, what would you say that people have the assumption of being 70 that you believe is untrue?
That you have disengaged from society, you have disengaged from social encounters. I think that's a big misnomer, that once you turn a certain age, like 70. Now, by the way, I have lived in the seventh decade for 10 years already. So I'm past that. I'm already looking forward to the next decade. And I guess that's why age has never bothered me, because whatever happened in the past is in the past and I'm going forward. Yippee!
And you're excited.
Yes, I'm excited because I want to see what this mind and this body happen. What's bound to happen. So that's the first thing, that you are you're retrenching somewhere.
Yeah, certainly not.
So that would be the one primary misnomer.
I love that. Yeah, and again, I think it goes back to the fact that I think as people get older, there is this kind of stigma or this misconception that you're slowing down. But I love it. Like even seeing my mother, who was recently here, as you know, and the only thing that, maybe holds her back in being as active is because she's not as feeling as well, like physically, but in terms of like her mental sharpness, her curiosity, that's the word, curiosity. And here I am, actually, I'll tell you, because she was traveling here alone to see me, as you you know. And then when she was headed back to the United States, I kind of felt like I was mothering her. And I remember her stopping me. She's like, I'm good. I know how to take care of myself. So I forget that, like, oh God, my mom has, like, she's sharp and she's this tiny little thing, smaller than me, but like she'll she can outrun everyone just because she you know, is so sharp and on her toes and, you know, just.
So my daughter does the same thing to me. Once she got, she always is, for instance, today she called the Uber for me.
But I think it's because, I mean, I can't speak for Caitlin, who I'm so lucky also to have gotten to know and developing a friendship. But I think it's more like we want to take care of our mothers too, and not so much. I hope it doesn't come across like, now I'm trying to mother my mom, but it's more like, oh, I want to do this for you so that it's one less thing you worry about.
And actually, that speaks loudly to how your mother raised you.
Oh.
That you're able to be empathetic and to her needs. So she put in the value system that you're now basically utilizing.
Oh.
So
You're gonna make me tear up here.
And I have to say that, you know, when I look at my daughter, who is a little bit younger than you, the value system that she holds dear, I am very impressed and glad that she kept it and cultivated it as she has aged and gone into life independently. So that was what my primary goal was, to make sure this person becomes an independent, productive citizen. And can value people and relationships.
Yeah. And that does like stem a lot from like you as well. And, you know, and as you were giving me the compliment, thank you. But that's clearly also evident in like what you've been able to like, you know, inspire her and kind of pass on. And so I know Caitlin is living with you now. And is that part of what would you say in terms of like moving here to Lisbon, to a new country from, you know, the United States?
Well, first of all, her living with us right now, as temporary as it's likely to be, is a gift. One of the things, when she was in college, she went away to college, and she had an independent life for those 4 years. She'd come home for semester breaks and summer. But I warned her at the end of her senior year, you're not going to want to come home and live. You're not going to be happy because you have experienced what it's like to be independent and make your own decisions. Coming home is going to crimp your style. So plan on getting a place after college to do it, you know, continue. And she did that. And be careful what you wish for, because all of those years she has lived, for the most part, on her own. So here we are now reunited in the last phase, so to speak, of my life and midterm in her life. But it's wonderful because I get to observe her not so much as a child or a daughter, but as an individual.
I love that.
And I also realize that I'm no longer a parent, which was a hard moniker to just drop. I will forever be her mother, but I am no longer her parent.
I see exactly what you mean. It took me a second to like let it sink in. So do you feel like your guys' relationship has also evolved in this new kind of stage in both of your lives?
I'm hoping, and it does run into some hiccups along the way because
it's natural.
But I keep reminding myself that I have to look at her as the individual that she is, not as a child that I would help across the street. There will forever be a connection. I mean, my brain has her DNA. I mean, it's forever going to be a connection. I'm not going to deny that. But I have to allow her as an individual to evolve to to be the best she can be.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be an impediment to that.
I love that approach and that perspective, because I know sometimes I catch my mother, even though I'm 45 now, that I think it's just a motherly instinct. And as you also know, that my mother and I spent a month together in Korea, and unlike the recent month together here in Portugal, it was a little tumultuous at times. And I remember coming back thinking to myself that I don't feel understood. And I even did a whole episode about it. I can link to it, that I felt that I was still grappling with cultural expectations and my desire to just be fully myself and express my needs and be understood as a grown woman. But it was interesting to kind of see how my perspective even changed and be more compassionate towards my mother when she was recently here, just pouring her unconditional love to me, that even if it's unintentional that she's trying to mother me, that it's just her motherly instinct that she will selflessly always want to protect. And what's so wrong with that
Right.
I realize I'm lucky.
Right.
I'm so lucky that I even have a mother at this stage in my life,
Exactly.
at the age of 45, who still wants to just selflessly give unconditional love. And
Yep.
and that was when all my previous judgments and frustrations and this desire to be understood just dissipated.
Right. And so you were going through something similar in trying to extract yourself from that concept that you had of what your mother represented.
Exactly.
Because in your mind prior to this revelation is she represented discipline, she represented boundaries, and maybe old-fashioned concepts. But when you saw her in her natural, she doesn't have that same power over you. Other than just love.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Sometimes I feel like she still does, but I think it's more about me letting it have power versus actually her having the power over
Right,
me.
yes.
Because I still joke that at the age of 45, my mother is the person I'm scared of the most. And it will still be the same. She
Yes.
is one strong woman, and
Yes.
just the change in tone of her voice, I will just still be a I don't know,
Right.
toddler.
It's called
But
PTSD.
maybe, yeah. On the point of old kind of constructs, as you've gotten older and have lived a beautiful and full life, are there any kind of old belief systems that you've realized you no longer hold or look at differently? And it could be in any area of your life.
Well, I do know I was raised in a strict Catholic family.
Did I know that?
And I went to parochial school for my primary education, and showed up at every Sunday at Mass. And there was no choice in the matter. We all got up and we all went. And that's one thing that I was able to let go of. The dogma, the guilt, telling me what to believe and why. No. So I definitely kicked to the curb.
Was it natural for you though? Like
To kick it to the curb?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why do you think it was so?
Because I remember being different in my family. I was the odd person.
Unique.
Well, okay, thank you very much. But I usually wasn't doing and liking the things that everybody else did in the family. But more importantly, I adored my father, and he never stepped foot in church. And the nuns told me that if you don't go to church or Mass or whatever, you're going to go to hell. And I understood the difference between heaven and hell when I was a child, and I didn't think my father deserved hell. So rather than kick my father out, I kicked the church out. And I have nothing to do with a organized religion. I'm not to say that I'm not spiritual, but I do not prescribe to a religion that was basically created by fellow humans. Okay, so what?
How old were you when you was describing that moment, when you realized, because that takes such maturity and self-assurance to even delineate between
Maybe.
What the church or what the religion is telling me about my father versus what I know of my father. Because if you're so entrenched in any belief system, that it may be, I'm assuming here, I don't know, that it may not be so easy. So was it just an inner strength?
Well, I began to question the dogma at an early age. I would have to say maybe I was 9, 10 years old.
That's young, yeah.
And I asked a lot of questions when I was of my parents and my I don't understand why, and they couldn't give me a sensible answer. So I decided that okay, well, I'm not going to waste my time if they can't answer. And these are grown-ups. If after all of these years they can't answer a direct question, then forget it. I'm out of here.
You asking questions I think ties back to how you describe yourself to being a very curious person, which I love. That's a word that I like to describe myself to. And I think that's what keeps, the having curiosity in life, I think, is such a pursuit of zest and vigor and more diversity in so much more.
Well, I remember telling you this story about how I came across my very first job.
Remind me.
Well, I was interviewing for a secretary job at a law firm.
Yes.
I had just graduated from high school, and fortunately, I had planned to go to college in the fall, but I needed money. I wanted to save for a car, and so between June and September, I was going to work and earn as much money as possible. So I took the skills that I learned, how to type and whatever, file, all that. I went and applied for a secretary job at the law firm. So the woman who was interviewing me, she was one of the partners, and she asked, why law? Why, of all the fields, why, what attracts you to law? And I said, I like to ask questions. And that's the one field where questions are required. and it was the truth. I mean, you stand up in court and you ask the defendant or you ask the witness a whole bunch of questions.
I love it. You were very clear. You knew exactly what field allowed you to do that. Lucky for you.
Yeah.
What was her reaction when you said that?
Well, she hired me. So I worked for the firm for 10 years. And when I left there, I was a certified paralegal and a legal administrator.
Love it.
Yeah, so I made some progress.
Yes. Got to ask lots of questions along the way.
Lots of
Never
questions.
challenged.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a undervalued or underestimated skill set.
Expand on that. I love what you are saying, and I think I can relate. So tell me more. Why is it an undervalued skill set?
Because in some instances, it's considered rude to ask someone,
Our East Asian culture.
Right. And as you know, I was made in Japan, so.
That's another story. I don't know if we have time.
So it's considered impolite to do a lot of probing.
Because it challenges authority, especially if you're asking a lot of questions to someone older than you.
Right. Speaking of challenging authority, I went to the principal's office many times because of my sass.
We love your sass, though. That's part of your personality.
And my first business, when I started my own business, it was a card and gift shop. And guess what it was called?
Something sass and me?
Sassy Sentiments.
Sassy sentiment.
Yeah. But anyway, that's one thing that I refuse to let anyone take away from.
Yeah. How do you practice asking questions in friendship?
Well, I try to preface my questions in a sense where it's coming out as concern and interest in the individual or the person or the matter. I try to make sure that that's the delivery. So that the person who's being asked is not feeling defensive.
Ah, that's a key point.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, I think, has to do with the skill of communicating and the choice of words. And whether it's friendship or romantic relationships, if it's not delivered or received a certain way, it can automatically put someone into a defense. And then that will just like escalate into a tension or dynamic that just is likely not what either of the person wanted.
Well, there was a course that I took years ago called interpersonal communication. And it dived into what the problems are in communicating, and they defined it as noise. That that between me speaking and you listening, there's a whole bunch of noise in between. And that you have to break through the noise
to be more clear,
so that you're heard.
You're heard.
So it's like you could speak a certain way, but if it's not being heard because of the noise, and the noise could be your prejudice, your preconceived ideas. It's all you have to clear the air.
But do you think that onus is on the person communicating that's not articulating themselves well to be heard, or vice versa?
No, absolutely. One of the other concepts that I learned in this, it is the communicator's responsibility to be understood, to be clear. It's just like when you're writing a paper or an essay. Whatever you're doing, it's your responsibility to make sure your points are clear for the reader or the person listening would understand it. So it puts the onus on the person doing the talking, not the person doing the listening.
I see your point, especially when you're giving the analogy of like writing the message to someone. Well, what if the receiver, the friend, for example, you can tell emotionally they're not in the state of wanting to understand because they're making the conversation now about them. Is that still on the onus is still back on the communicator and they're not doing a good job communicating?
It is, in a sense, if you want to be understood. Now, some people may walk away from it at that juncture and say, okay, too much trouble. But if you want to be understood and you value the relationship, now that's something that plays into it immeasurably.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it, right? But if you value it and you want to be understood, you will try every which way to be heard. It's different than just to be listened to. You want to be heard.
Yeah, all of us want to feel heard.
And you want to be understood.
Yeah.
And if the recipient is not in a position, then you can decide to postpone it, or you can ask a little bit more questions to figure out how best to navigate the field.
Like what? Sorry to interrupt, but like because again, that skill of asking questions, like I love that, and you're so right. I didn't think about it, and it ties directly to being curious. Like what would be a question that you can ask the person that you can see is still struggling to understand you, to hear you, but again, it's your responsibility to be understood.
Well, I have said many times, I'm sorry, I must not be making myself clear, or I'm sorry, I think I've been misunderstood. Let me try again. I'm putting the onus on me when I say, I'm not saying to them, you didn't listen to me. Or
Yeah.
You didn't understand. No, I said, I did not make myself clear enough for you to understand. That's what the onus of that's what it's all about.
You think it's necessary to preface it with, I'm sorry? It's like you're not doing anything bad. But
in a way, it's one of the things that I say all the time, and people have tried to correct me on that. Yeah.
Well, no, it's because I just feel like people overuse sorry, and especially
Yes.
when you didn't even do anything wrong. You didn't make any transgression. Misunderstanding is not a transgression at all to be sorry about, in my opinion, unless you deliberately, intentionally try to hurt someone.
Well, it diffuses the situation, or it might have allowed, again, to get rid of the noise. If it's helpful to get rid of the noise, then it's beneficial.
Got it.
The last thing I would want to do ever is intentionally hurt anybody.
Of course.
And if I did that, I apologize immediately.
Yeah.
Because that's nothing that I strive to do.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah. So in the years of your life, I'm sure you've had all sorts of different types of friendships, and friendships that evolved, friendships that lasted seasons to decades. Is there anything, and I love what you said earlier, how earlier in your life you even sought out specific type of relationships just to learn more about different people's lives and perspective. It's such a beautiful trait. And on that point, through all the decades, have you found it harder, easier, any different to make friendships as you get older? I ask that because personally, I think I have, but I believe this sentiment is not unique to me. I've heard it, and I actually have seen a lot of content, heard a lot of content online from especially females, that adult friendships amongst girlfriends is a bit challenging as you get older. But I'd love to hear from you. How has it been? Is it any different as you get older to develop certain type of friendships or maintain friendships?
I haven't found that to be the case. There are some dynamics at play, which is obviously time and distance. So it does challenge the individuals to continue to be relevant in each other's life. But again, if you want it and you value it, it will work. I have a friend that I only speak to once a year, and that's on our respective birthdays.
Oh.
I have known her since I was 6 years old. And we don't have the compulsion to be talking every week, every day, whatever. We don't have any of that compulsion. She and I know that we are connected. We are connected. There's nothing that's going to undo that. Not distance.
Of course, yeah.
And not her, her relationship, her relationship with her husband or mine, whatever. And when we speak to each other on our respective birthdays, we just talk as though we've been talking all the time.
Of course.
So, and I have a few relationships like that are embedded in early childhood. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I understand what you're saying. And I think that it's beautiful when you have that friendship from childhood. I have a childhood friend too. We've known each other since we were 1.
Yes.
And she would always correct me when I refer to her to somebody else. I was like, oh, one of my dearest lifelong friends. She's like, we're not friends. We're practically cousins, Chris. And I'm like, oh, I get it. But I think there's a very unique bond when you've been not only friends for so long, but gone through so much together, through so much life experiences in each other's, in your individual lives, and being there for each other. So I understand that, how those types of friendships, regardless of what happens in your individual lives, it's unshakable. And you can easily just connect as if you talked to her yesterday.
And it also speaks to another virtue, which is generosity.
How so?
You're generous to each other by allowing the space without creating any kind of negative feeling. You are allowing the person to be who she is or where she wants to be without taking any personal affront.
Yes.
So I allow my friend to exist in her world without having to be burdened in any way, shape, to work very hard at a relationship. No, you don't have to work hard. It's natural.
I love that.
And so if you can be generous in allowing a person to exist and thrive and be that person, then you're going to get a lot in return.
I love that I didn't expect the word generous to come up. But when it did, and the way you described it, I feel like it's kind of like the antithesis to having expectations in a relationship, because having expectations, unlike generosity, is like they should fulfill things based on our own should-be beliefs. And I don't know if we've had these conversations, but my listeners know I have done a lot of work on and speak very passionately about letting go of expectations in any relationship dynamic versus like having standards. But I love the concept and point you made about generosity, because that was such a beautiful point. And it made me feel like, oh, it sounds like the antithesis of having expectations in relationships.
Yes.
So while having those relationships, though, it resonates, and I can understand like how easy it is to be in each other's lives through, all the life experiences without expectations. But back to, and it's okay, because you were saying that I don't think it's been hard or any difficult to make new friendships. But I wonder, and I'll ask the question again, though, just unlike those friendships that you've had for decades, and you don't have to put much effort because you really know each other from inside and out, etc. And there's that generosity of she lives her life, I don't expect anything. But, and especially, you've moved to a new country for decades, has making new friends been any different or challenging?
Besides the language barrier, I find that making new friendships with what they call the expat population is a lot easier than if I was back in my home country and dealing with that. The reason I think it's much easier is because they chose to be here. I chose to be here, and our sensibilities are aligned, regardless of their background, regardless of their age. The fact that they're here tells me, well, we have a lot in common. And then it's just a matter of taking it from there,
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
what's their favorite restaurant, go out for a cocktail. It's so easy. In my opinion, if you are open to the idea that more is better.
More is better.
The more the merrier. Why am I going to restrict? I mean, keep it coming. Keep it coming. It just makes life more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it's not as though every one of these contacts, I can sit and tell them my most personal detail, because that's not required. Showing genuine interest in their thinking, what they like, and how they go about their day.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, because it's just making me ponder a little bit, because I don't know if I've shared with you, but it's only my recent kind of exploration and reflection on friendship dynamics, that, when, first of all, I love having diverse group of friends, and friends that I may golf with, a friend like you, that it's just natural and we can have these deep conversations. but that and certain type of friendships where I can feel emotionally safe,
Right.
which to me, I've also said this in different occasions on my podcast, especially recently, that only when I have those types of that type of like safety and energy, it allows me to go deeper and
Yes.
foster
Yes.
a more intimate
Yes.
friendship versus, having a friendship that I will have a cocktail with. And like, what you're saying, like, this doesn't mean that I share my deepest, darkest secrets with them, but I've come to realize that, okay, Chris, it's okay
Right.
to just have those friends as just, I don't want to say surface level, but just friends that you just have quick little coffees with.
There's a word, I think, it's called acquaintance.
Yeah.
That might fit this definition.
You're right. No, you're right. But it's because that's so funny. And I'm just laughing out loud here because it's so direct and clear, Deborah. But I think in my head, I just was, blanketing everyone as friends. So because I consider them a friend, maybe I still have this unconscious expectation in my mind, but no, they can just be acquaintances, Chris.
Right. And then the more you acquaint yourself with that person and vice versa, then you'll find that the passage could turn into friendship.
True. Yeah.
Without having to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
It's just let it evolve. And the one thing that will turn me off against anyone.
Yeah. What is that?
Is, first of all, I'm attracted to kindness. If you're kind to a pet, to a bird, or whatever, I mean, I will be immediately attracted to that person.
Yeah.
The minute they show their mean streak, is the minute I leave.
Yeah.
And the reason is I am very outgoing and transparent, and I wear my feelings out there. And I'm protecting myself by saying, adios, see you later.
And that's a standard that you set for yourself. And you probably have a very strong meter of identifying when someone is genuinely kind.
Yes, kindness is something that I can smell it a mile away. And then when I saw you in the market with your little baby dog, that spoke volumes to me. Because yes, even though your dog was much smaller, but I have walked past stores where dogs are on a leash tied to a chair on the outside of the store or the building. And I'm sorry, I feel for the dog, number one, but couldn't you have just phoned in your order?
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, it's just, anyway, so when people start talking negatively, we could all be out, a group of us, and they start talking negatively about someone. It turns me off.
No, I know what you mean, and thank you for mentioning that about because it totally resonates too whenever I see a dog being mistreated. Oh my God, on social media, I will immediately bawl whenever I see content of stray dogs that were just left on the street. But I didn't realize that you seeing me like that gave the impression of kindness.
And plus,
That's
you
beautiful.
demonstrated it not more than 2.5 weeks after that casual meetup or in the grocery store. We had exchanged our contact information. And what happens 2.5 weeks later, my husband decides to have what I thought was a stroke.
Decides.
He didn't have a stroke. He basically, but he did conk out. He fainted. And I didn't have a Portuguese phone. And I did not know what number to call for emergency. I was calling 911. That does not work here.
No.
And then when I found out it's 112, I would get people that didn't understand me. And I didn't. And I called you. And he said, please help. Can you contact the ambulance for me? And have them come. And not only did you do that successfully, but you came yourself.
With Chia.
With Chia. You came to support me.
Yeah.
And that, I will never forget that. I can't undo that because we were simply an acquaintance at that time.
That's true.
We had zero contact until you got that SOS call from me. And it behaved in such a humanistic way. And so
I'm glad you called me.
I'm glad it all is serendipitous when I think back on it.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been very different. It could have ended up very different.
Yeah, I do believe in the saying that everyone comes into your life for a reason. And I don't believe in like accidental encounters. I believe that encounter in the supermarket was definitely
there's just too much energy out in the universe not to be affected by it.
Yeah.
And I think that it speaks to people very differently, and how you respond is how you navigate life.
How you respond. Oh yeah. That's very stoic. It's very, very, very stoic. Yes.
Maybe I should start writing these things. But it's funny because
it's not about what happens to you.
Yeah.
It's how you
receive it
and how you interpret that.
Right. And what you
do with it. Absolutely.
Yes.
And that completely, just that perspective, the change of frame of reference, all of that is really what dictates also, and I believe your standards, dictates the quality of your life, because otherwise, then you're just walking around feeling like a victim.
Right.
And everything is happening to you. But it's really not. It's what you choose to do with what is happening and seeing, it doesn't always have to be, everything is positive right now, because I feel like that is toxic positivity. But it's like, okay, like this is serving a purpose one way or another.
Yeah, you have to take advantage of these opportunities to learn from it. Most importantly, to learn from it, and that will dictate how you proceed in the future. They're all building blocks.
They are.
The more people that you have around you that are, and I keep using the word value, their value system is aligned. That is what keeps them in your orbit. Because you cannot, regardless of what the sex of the person is, the age of the person, the ethnic background, none of that matters. It's their value system that matters. And if you are aligned, then you're forever together.
I agree. Can I ask you a little bit on, because I didn't realize time is already an hour. Wow. See what happens when you're just in great company. You and David have been married for how many years?
48 years.
Wow. That's a long time. That's a long commitment. And I ask that because I read the statistic, and I hear it all the time in a lot of podcasts, but the percentage of people getting married and delaying marriage has decreased over the years. People are struggling in dating, and also delaying even having children, all of that. To be said, what have you learned about love and commitment in being with your husband for 40 some years? I'm sure I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it takes some work, right?
Well, it definitely takes work. But again, the term marriage, it's almost, the word marriage is irrelevant now.
What? Say more.
Well, I was told, again, I was working for lawyers, and that when you decide to get married, it's between you, your betrothed, and the state. This is not just you and him. It's the state's involved. And the state was involved because they had a vested interest in how your marriage performed. Because you are taxed differently, and then you produce children, that produces more productivity, et cetera. So they had a vested interest. Nowadays, I don't think it's critical. As a matter of fact, it's been detrimental because young girls, for example, when they reach a certain age and are not married, they all of a sudden feel less worthy.
Yeah.
And that's nonsense. And I do think it was a institution imposed upon women. And I don't think women need it anymore.
Everything that you're saying just resonates with me so much, and
just to go back to your other question, is in those 48 years, it hasn't been this. It's been this. It's all a matter of what you find important and what you value. Period.
So what do you find important value?
I've always valued relationships, whatever you want to call them. Relationships were always important to me. And this is a relationship that has been defined in so many different ways during those years. And at the same time, the only reason we got married was we had been dating and living together, but we wanted to have a dinner party and invite our parents, but we couldn't.
Really? That was the only main reason.
The only reason we got married is because we were both social creatures. Yeah. We wanted to have a dinner party, but his parents and my parents would not abide by us cohabitating.
Couldn't you have just told them that, just verbally, that you were married? It's not like they asked you to see marriage certificate, or did they?
Oh, no. My Italian family, you needed
proof that, okay, we're legally married.
But you could not get married. It was a big celebration.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's sort of like a joke between us that, matter of fact, when we were cohabitating, this is a funny story. And in those days, we only had telephones, no mobile, no cell.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had a telephone, my number in my name, and he had one in the same apartment, in the same room, his name and number.
You had two lines.
We had two lines.
Oh my, clever.
But the funny thing is, when he's talking to his mother and my phone rings.
How did you explain that?
So his mother says, what phone is that? And he knows it's my phone ringing. I'm not there. So he says, I have the windows open. It's my neighbor's phone.
Sneaky. I love it.
Anyway, it boiled down to, it was a lot easier to go with it than to create another avenue. But because neither one of us were interested in procreating at that time, so marriage wasn't a big issue.
Oh my God, I have to ask the last question.
Okay.
There was so much more, but I can't believe it's already an hour, because I wanted to really also expand on love and relationship. But I have a tradition on this podcast, which is a question that I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
If you, Deborah, can go back to your younger self at any age in her life to pass on just one piece of wisdom. You shared so much wisdom already here, and you share with me often. But if you can talk to the younger Deborah, what is one piece of advice that you would like to pass on to her?
Do not fear the unknown, and do not feel failure. You cannot be successful without experiencing failure. Because how do you define success unless you compare it? I mean, it's very nebulous in that way.
Yeah.
Younger self, respect yourself.
I love that.
And give yourself opportunities to succeed. It could be the simplest thing, but the more you prove to yourself that you're worthy and capable, the more independent you become. So independence is critical, particularly for women. You must be independent in order to become your full self.
I love
and to
that.
be everything that you are capable of being. So don't feel failure, and strive for success as you define success. And keep asking questions.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
this has been a dream.
Deborah.
I loved it.
I'm so glad. I wish we had more time, but I just want to acknowledge like you for being an inspiration in so many different ways, not just to me, but I know so many other women, hopefully, watching this, but just the way you're living life with curiosity and asking questions and leading with kindness and just being so receptive. And thank you for being in my life as well.
There's one thing I want to add to that because it goes right back to you, is that I read this article in Psychology Today many years ago, and it talked about friendship. And the intricacies and so forth. So I was so moved by the article that I actually wrote to the editor. And believe it or not, I am now published because my comment was there. And basically what I said is deep friendship is basically a reflection of yourself.
How? That's so powerful. But wait, how?
When you pick someone, and when you are friendly with someone, and you have a deep, abiding friendship, it is sort of like a mirror of yourself.
I love that.
I mean, it's not that you're that self-centered. It has nothing to do with that.
No. It's a reflection.
It's a reflection.
Of the standards and values.
Right. Because the more you learn about that person and the more you like that person, you're basically liking yourself.
What a beautiful place to end.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.